I'm Anthony Garcia. My role is the president of Overwatch for Hyperscale. I work with a handful of customers that are frankly changing the world in the amount of shit they deploy all over the place. And what's so interesting is 99% of everything I talk about is veterans. Like when you talk about where I got my professional upbringing, it was the military. And I'd say, again, 99% of everything I do, the nonprofits I support, it's always been geared towards that community. And it's only now that I'm a little older and I've been able to support a lot of veteran activities that I meet people like both of you. And we get to talk about something that I really only get to talk with a handful of people. And that is, I'm Hispanic too. I grew up in a small town in South Texas that was 99% Hispanic, and that everyone grew up on a ranch there. Everyone was on a farm because that's all it was. I mean, that's everyone that lived there. You grew up on a farm, you raised cattle, you sold your cattle, like you're part of that community. And that's something that's near and dear to my personality, like who I came from. And so what we're talking about today is we're Hispanics. We're people from all over the world that come and are impacting this data center industry. So again, 99% of what I talk about is veterans. Today, we're talking about, well, some veteran related stuff, but Hispanic and Latin people and their impact in the data center industry. It so happens to be Hispanic Heritage Month, so the timing is nice. But we're going to talk about, again, what we said about in the U.S. and how Hispanics are impacting. But now we're going to shift and talk about market dynamics and other stuff that's going on south of the border. Everything that those communities that we're trying to help here are doing in those countries is going to shift. There's going to be opportunities just like they're chasing here in those countries. The data center industry grows. So we went through intros. Let's talk about Mexico.
Apologies, coming out from COVID, so.
Yeah, let's come out of COVID. Yeah. What's going on in Mexico right now? Like you're in the forefront of like the pulse of the data center industry. Like what's going on in Mexico that's interesting for the U.S.?
800 megawatts of pipeline.
800 megs of pipeline from Mexico?
Yeah.
That's so funny. We were just talking about 40 being the country capacity in 2001.
It's crazy. Just imagine a few years, the data center industry, comes to a certain town and they are requesting more than 750 megawatts of power. The city uses 1.1 megawatt total, including industry. So it's
1.1 megawatt for the city,
very
750 for the development.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure that if those companies that came down to that market had access to that power, they would be filling those data centers up. But what's happening, unfortunately, a lot of those companies came to Mexico and they bought land thinking that the power is going to get there. Like mostly what happens in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
If you get there, the power company, knocks on your door and you can work something out. In Mexico, it's different because the utility company is owned by the government. And there's a couple of entities that work together as an ASEAN CFE. So you have to go through a lot of interesting processes, right?
Because all power is controlled by the government in Mexico.
And again, a lot of companies bought land where they were told, hey, I can give you 50, 100, 150 megawatts. In fact, when we were searching for land, we looked at some of those parcels, and I ended up saying, no, we're not going to go here. We ended up going to the outskirts of Querétaro in the state of Guanajuato. And again, this comes with a little bit of experience in the market, right? You know that 2 + 2 is not going to be 3, right? So you see the infrastructure and no, it's not going to happen. So it's going to get better, right? It's going to get resolved. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to happen, right? But you got that central Mexico covered, right? Right now, fiber companies are enhancing their offer because the main challenge there was, you have a project, I'll build the infrastructure. So you have aerial infrastructure, but underground infrastructure for metro, it was non-existent. But now they're getting better, right? On the international or long haul, also, companies are starting to see that Mexico and Latin America is becoming a very attractive market, and they're starting to invest in underground also infrastructure for fiber. There's conversations about landing cables also that will fall from the Pacific and from the Atlantic as well. Ourselves, we spent some time in Barcelona figuring out how we're going to get involved as well as Layer 9 in the whole connectivity portion, because now you're going to have a lot of information. How are you going to transport it, right? So it's right now a very dynamic market, very new players. Some players try to go in the market, ended up going out the market. Some players are waiting. They're announcing they're good. They're actually there, but they don't have any power, right? They have big projects, but it's going to take time to scale up.
Okay.
Now, what I see in Mexico is that you got potential for south and up north as well. And it's very important that U.S. or international companies team up with Mexican companies or Latin American individuals that know the market, right? In some cases, money is not the problem to fix a situation. And that's one of the things, right? People say, with money, I can fix anything in Mexico. That's not true. People fix things in Mexico, in Latin America. And you have to be in sync with them so they can help you fix that. Now, also, we know that growth has created a big pocket of opportunity also with people, right? We don't have any people. The industry was basically non-existent. It was like back in the day, right? Here in the United States, you had a handful of people that understood how a data center was built. And everybody thought that was very similar as an industrial facility, which is not. It's the speed you have to deploy a data center is very different, right? If you miss a step, you're done. And that causes a lot of pain, a lot of losses in terms of economics. And now I'm seeing it as a owner, right? As a customer myself, right? So it's there's a lot of things that need to happen in Mexico to get to a point where we are going to become, I think, one of the biggest markets in the world. And nearshoring is one of the terms that's very.
Yeah, I think that's been the whole piece behind it.
Exactly.
The shift away from China to Mexico is like the opportunity for Mexico to actually deploy and manage data center capacity at scale.
You can see it in the dollar, right? The exchange rate. It's very stable. Typically, it keeps going up, and now it's going down. It's very for us, Mexico, seeing this opportunity, it's something great, right? Because we were due for that. We have very smart people. We have a lot of resources in the country, and we need more investment in the country, stable investment. Because Mexico, we were housed completely with the automotive industry. But any economical variation in the world, what's get hit? Construction, automotive industry, right? And it was automotive, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3s. And now people are understanding that the data center industry, it's basically real estate on steroids. That's how I explain to people. It's like, well, you're in technology. No, I'm not. I'm in real estate. It's on steroids, right?
Yeah.
You got a very small piece of land where you can invest billions of dollars. And it's a lot of power. And there's a lot of money that goes in. And your customers are AAA plus customers, right? So it's getting a great tenant in your building, and that's never going to go away. And people are understanding that in data centers, information does not lose value; it appreciates with time, and that's what data centers have.
Hey, you mentioned like some power concerns, like the power. I've heard this before, and they're already losing power. They're already out of power. But like your view on it is it's not they're out of power, they're just out of what? Like the government's not going to push any more direction?
Distribution. There's power, right? It's so different from the United States. The distribution lines are very weak. They need to update those, they need to reinforce the
Okay,
distribution,
so a lot of the existing
substations.
infrastructures.
Yeah, so it's infrastructure. End of the day, it's engineering, right? You need to get those that infrastructure up and running, and that's a reality. There's not a power problem, but again, I think we're chatting about this. Mexican Association of Data Center was created in Mexico by the biggest colo providers in Mexico, by Layer 9, by Ascenti, Odata, Kio, and the whole reasoning of creating that association was to create an ecosystem of knowledge for the people. That was it, knowledge. Typically, when you create an association, there's always kind of there's always an agenda, right? But for us, we're the customers. We're the ones buying from all the vendors.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have any hidden agenda for that association. In fact, we're sharing information between competitors of what's going on with power. Their commission's a power commission.
That's why you had that legislative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, regulations, which I'm actually the vice president of the association.
It's interesting because there is no utility outreach. It's really government outreach to really be in that whole thing.
But here's the thing. If we were able to teach the people or have information available on how the process works, they can pick and choose, and they can say, the companies that want to enter Mexico, they can say, you know what, I can wait till 2027. Let them make the decision, right? It's difficult when you tell them, yeah, it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. But end of day, it's lack of knowledge, right? And I don't think the industrial parks thought that they were going to have so many challenges. I think that they really believed that they were going to get the power. I don't think there was malice in anything that was done. It's just lack of knowledge. Nobody thought that 5, 6, 7 companies were just going to dive in and ask for 700 megawatts. It's crazy. In a 500-year-old city, it's engineering. But creating that ecosystem and teaching people how things work, from the Mexico side, Latin side, to the U.S. side, right? I've been in conversations because my previous life, I was the last company I worked for, LBS Power Technologies. We were integrating solutions for data centers, right? And there was one specific customer from the U.S. He was very frustrated. He was, how the hell are we going to be able to get X amount of megawatts commission when people don't really understand what we want? Every week that I come here, I have meetings, and I explain everything that needs to get done, and everybody says, "Fine, okay."
Yeah.
Did you understand that? Yes. They leave, and they come back, and everything's the same, right? And there goes my theory that language is not the main barrier. It's not the main barrier. Seeing the United States as our neighbor and seeing that's I think the biggest power in the world, right? There's certain people feel intimidated when U.S. folks go to Mexico, and it's typically, right? A guy from the U.S. is going to come. We need to slow down a little bit, right? So once that gets broken, and people start better communicating from the Latin side to the U.S. side, I think things will start progressing faster. And you're working in a U.S. firm, right? And working in Mexico projects. Have you been exposed to that?
Of course, I have. It's a challenge. Mexico is different. I'm lucky because COVID came, and after COVID, we changed a lot of technology. We get to use more Teams and all that stuff. So we have been it's been a lot easier to integrate the Mexico team to the U.S. team. Like, there is people for example, there's people on this team that have been working with me now for years, and they're already sort of integrated, and they see the both worlds. They can see one world and they can see the other world on the design side. On the construction side, that's a whole different story.
It's a whole different story.
It's a little more challenging. It's construction. The construction side is different. For example, I'll give you an example. Something that is a typical thing on U.S. versus Mexico: means and methods. When we go and build a data center in U.S., we rely a lot on the construction team. What is the means and method typically is done at the construction level, and they detail it. They know what they want to do because they're the one buying the materials, and they want to make sure that they can do it the most effective and most cost-effective solution based on what they can find in the area. It's very important to them. In the U.S., it's a thing. They really want to have control of those means and method, because if you tell them what to do, they're not going to maybe find that particular part piece in the area, and they might not be able to do it on time or cost effective. In Mexico, there is no such thing. Means and methods is done. They want all detail out so they can do exactly what he said. They do not want to have that control of the code.
Tell us exactly how to do it. We're going to do it just like that.
We'll do it just like that. This is what I want. Can you tell me exactly how to do it?
We want the overall intent. So, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, we'll make it.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
No, down there. Down there, they want it. They want to know the details.
So that's what you encounter, like going back and forth.
And the most, I think one of the things that we need to get better at, and we need to get better at, is to be able to say we don't know, right? People are thirsty for projects, right? In the States, you find projects everywhere, everywhere, right? But in Mexico, you don't. So they go in means and methods. Yeah, we know about it. And no, they don't, right?
We just know that you're going to
give us
the next direction.
Of course. If not, I can find somebody that knows, right? And, generally they think they can get it done. But here's the difference. When you're working on a 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt project, you can lift the rug and start, putting things below the rug. When you're starting on a 10, 15, 20, 30 megawatt facility, those things don't pass, right? Those are big problems that come up really fast, and it's a lot of money, right? So we saw it with some of the builds. I'm not going to mention any names that, companies just dived in, we're going to get this project, construction firms, and boom, challenges all over the place. Ended up, that company ended up hiring another company. And again, I think it's a learning curve. I don't think it's very different from other parts of the world.
It's not.
But we're at that stage. And again, language, it's a problem. It's a challenge. And no different. You're looking for somebody in Chile, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't speak English. If you go to Brazil, it's the same. They only speak Portuguese. So it's very important to create those kind of those avenues for Mexico, Latin America folks, and U.S. folks to be able to communicate and also understand the culture, how we can communicate, right? And also, I think we need to do a better job in Latin America to be more communicative, right? Be able to speak better, be able to tell a customer no, and to anticipate what's going to happen, right? And those are things that I think Mexico specifically is getting a lot better. They're understanding that the market is not going to go away.
Well, as the industry, you've brought a new industry. We've talked about before, the shift away from China to Mexico is like how you become a more consistent industry out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from the manufacturing side, shouldn't that be, well, even the industrial, what you dealt with before, that should be a huge surge in that area.
But the ecosystem is growing. I think the companies are learning, what they did 5 years ago is not what they're doing now. You see, if back in the day, 5 years later, when you see now, because I've been in the Mexico market for a long time now. I got to build in Guadalajara. I did a data center, I work on a project in Guadalajara, a big size project with I think it was like 1 or 2 megawatt data center, but it had a bunch of other stuff. And I've seen the progression now, 5 years later, how you can see a lot more it's improving. And it's improving.
Your contractor base, like what do you mean?
like the contractor base and the quality and the understanding of the documents. Like you see that they can understand better.
Okay.
Like they figure it out. But I've been through the whole process. Tell me, I've been through even selecting equipment at Mexico City with the Square D in the details, getting the guy entering the data on the system from going to the field and looking at what they have done, so it's kind of interesting but I have seen progression. I have seen improvement on that side. It's not perfect yet, and it needs a lot of work. I'm not saying that it's not there yet. It needs a lot of work, but it's better than what it was. And the ecosystem is getting better, especially in Querétaro, I think.
What I completely agree with Freddy. And what I would hope in the future is that salaries get better as well. Because if you see how much a U.S. technician gets paid and a Mexican technician, there's a world away, right? Of course, in Mexico, we need to create that data center ecosystem to be able to house X amount of technician and, create that opportunity.
Yeah, the training pipeline to get them there.
The philosophy of it's Mexico, pay them less, right? And you're seeing the rent values, staying true to what's going on with the United States. And it shouldn't be more expensive. Why are they not paying those salaries down in Mexico?
A lot of commute time for them. Many people that work in the city have to commute 1 or 2 hours to come down to work. And some of these guys, to go to Querétaro, the people that work in Querétaro, they commute maybe hours to get to the place. So the commute down there is brutal for the people.
Yeah, and you see the salaries, and it's like, why, right? But I think that's going to start, going away.
I don't know, man. As long as the market isn't demanding that area. I think about when I used to work with Oracle, when we hired people in India, like for those data centers, it was a third of the cost of a US-based person. And sometimes you could hire all the precautions we would take for hiring in the US, it didn't exist there because it was only a third of the cost. So it'd be like, of course you can hire 3 people because you hired 1 person here.
Right.
And it's just, that's what the market is demanding. That is what the people who are qualified at that level are saying, I'll take this job for this much. Until that goes up, that's where it's at. I think that's where, as you get larger industries, like, are you following that Tesla build that's going on?
Yeah.
Like, how big is that? How much land do they buy? Like,
it's about 30, 40, 40 acres, 50 acres.
Is that it? I thought they bought
I'm sorry. I think I messed up in the numbers, but yeah, it's
they bought a few thousand acres and they're like going to be developing a few
1,000 acres. Yeah.
Like, so when you think about that size project, that's how your wage starts trickling up, because that whole thing is going to suck the talent out of like every single worker in Querétaro could go to that project and they still wouldn't have enough. So,
yes. But that's still automotive industry. That's still the automotive industry, and every time that the economy gets hit,
well, they are. But look what they do in Austin right now. The same people that we're trying to put on data center projects, they're going to the Tesla plant. The same superintendents, the same PMs, they're all getting sucked into that because Tesla still pays money and they still pay competitive to the market. So that's why I feel like, yeah, it's automotive, but that is a mega project that takes the talent from Austin. Even Panasonic, they're not data centers, but they sucked away 6,000 professionals from this area just to be part of that. So I think that's my thing, is as long as you get more infrastructure projects like that, that will complement the wages, because we're going to take them for the data center side. They're going to go back and forth in that whole.
Well, I think he mentioned something that it was very important at the beginning when he described that's how things work down there that actually influence the market. He said in Mexico, when you go in Monterrey, you go to school there, you study there, you graduate there, you live there. So people, and this is a Latin American thing, and it's the same reason I went back to Puerto Rico, like in Mexico, people like to stay in the region near their family, and it's very important. So they're not going to relocate from Querétaro to Monterrey just because Tesla opened a factory.
Interesting.
People will stay in Querétaro because their family is from Querétaro. This is important to them. So I think that is something that it happens a lot. This is not a Mexico thing. It's a Latin American thing. It's happening in Puerto Rico. It's happening in Chile. People stay in nucleus of families. That is, family is so important to us.
Yes, and
It's a very important thing.
You got Mexico City that's not far, and a lot of people in Querétaro come from Mexico City, as Freddy said. A lot of people commute, but now people are starting to move because Querétaro is, I think it's a better environment than Mexico City sometimes for young families.
Yeah, big city versus outside of it.
But again, going back to the salaries, right? How much are we willing to pay? And again, from my side, Layer 9, I made the promise that we're going to pay competitive wages compared to the U.S., right?
Hell yeah, that's how you're going to get the talent.
Exactly, and that was one of the commitments we made.
The market
with the government.
made you do. Like, if you want to be part of this, you want to bring real professionals, then you got to pay them real money.
Exactly, so they can, have great houses and they can really protect what they're doing and keep on learning, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things we want to attract. People understanding that our industry is a well-paid industry. It's in all of its levels, right? Starting from infrastructure, engineering, service. Technicians, get paid very well in the data center industry.
Yeah.
Operators.
Yeah, it's
like a top 5% wage in that country if you were making that money in the data center industry.
I'll put it this way. My kids, right? I pushed my kids as hard as possible to get into the industry, get inside the industry. And they didn't want to. They ended up, accepting the challenge. They found a job in the industry, as techs, right? And they make more than some of their friends that are managers in specific jobs, right? They make more money.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to create also in Latin America, right? In that ecosystem that everybody wants to be in, right? And I know that a lot of people here in the United States don't even know about the data center industry.
No, more people know about oil and gas than they know about the data center industry. And there was a thing that drove people to oil and gas, knowing that was what was propelling us forward. Yeah. So I think as more people realize data centers are that next, I guess, oil and gas, that their opportunities are going to keep growing.
Yeah, and for Latin America, AI certainly has brought a new stage of opportunities.
New perspective too.
Why? Because latency is not the big issue, right? And they need a lot of power, a lot of compute. So they can deploy 100, 200, 300 megawatt facilities where they can get the power, right? And where they can get benefits. So it's interesting how U.S. companies or cloud service providers are opening up their scope to Latin America to be able to start building hyperscale data centers, 50, 100, 150, right? We've had conversations with multiple, and they're, I need 30 megawatts, and I went line of sight to 300 megawatts, right? But just like that, we met with one of the cloud service providers, and the first thing is, I want 50 megawatts. I want them now.
Yeah.
And they're talking about gigawatts. And it was one of the things, he shared the information with us saying, right now we're searching for gigawatts. The term is gigawatts, not megawatts.
We've moved on.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Like, holy crap, what's going on? And that's going to,
It is a deal. It's just so much power.
You're seeing it all over your offices, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal now. It's just, we're, like he said, AI is so concentrated, so much processing in a small little space. So you can do so much in a smaller space that compared what we did back in the Bank of America, Those things were like, we designed it for 30 megawatts. And that was like, wow. Now 30 megawatts is nothing.
Yeah.
No,
it's great to be able to hear you say from the Mexico side, AI and ML is impacting the growth over there. And, for someone watching the podcast, they might just be reading about it. But it's like, this is here to stay. Like, there was the internet, and now there's like the second shift of what is this going to create? It's not a buzzword. It's literally being deployed in the billions across the world. And I'm really interested to see what the next few years are going to be like. But for anyone watching it, it's no longer just a buzzword. It is what's here to stay.
I don't think we even understand what's going to happen with AI. I think it's something very interesting, but the capabilities.
It's replacing professional assistants from without a doubt. I can say definitively many of the tasks that we in my company use it for, that would normally go to an assistant or go to like a junior project manager of like, hey, go edit these documents or go get this ready. And it's like, no, just go put it in there and tell it to reformat it. And then you do a few tweaks. But that is literally, so I can see it replacing administrative support very quickly. I'm curious to know from a design side, like how do you do a prep from there? From a CAD side, like what can you potentially get from that?
Well, it is we've been talking about that, a lot of offers coming to the tables, company like us, like they want our data so they can enter into the system.
Yeah.
We haven't got there yet. At some point, I would imagine, we have many offers like, okay, give me your drawings and then we'll be able to do it for you next time. But we're not ready for that yet. We have to figure out a way to get more effective. But we talk about that all the time in our industry. It's about AI for us. It's about trying to find, like to give you an analogy, what the old school, in AutoCAD, you could create a list, and the list will do all these tasks for you. Mm-hmm. What the AI is going to do for us is going to create these tasks for us, all these group of things. So we got to focus more on overall design. The details will be handled by the AI. So we'll say, provide, locate the lights on this room with 50-foot candle.
Who's the person in the team that does that? Like, so could you see that now? It's like, well, we're no longer saying it's that person. It's going.
Yeah, you will. There is many things. That thing that I did, I started talking about being a drafter. That's going to be.
Oh, yeah. That's what you wanted to start. Yeah.
10 years. I don't think 10, 20, 30 years. I think drafting will not be a thing.
Wow.
AI will handle it for you.
No, that makes sense.
You will locate it and then I will deploy it.
Yeah, well, I was having this conversation with my kid, right? And we were talking about self-driving cars. Mm-hmm. And he immediately said, I think my kids are not going to even have a license, right?
Yeah.
So things will progress. I'm saying it's going to be good or bad, but they will change. And they will change very fast. As, technology is growing in 5, 6-fold, 10-fold. It's something that's growing exponentially. And for our industry, infrastructure, it only means more, right? Interesting enough, we're talking about with some of the investors or even private equity firms about the data center industry, because a lot of money also is migrating. A lot of the big capitals are migrating from commercial down to the data center industry, right?
That's right. Who's moving into office buildings at like rapid paces right
exactly.
now?
Inventory in commercial, it's high right now in some of the states and some of the big cities, and that money needs to be put to work at some point, right? So we were talking about how stable is the data center industry, and somebody said nobody's erasing applications from your phone, right? Mm-hmm. Your phone is always getting
more applications
and more data,
pictures,
5G.
More data. The data keep growing.
Exactly. So that's your answer. And for me, it was very simple. So, and all that information has to go to a data center. Well, it's a cloud. Well, the cloud's a data center. It doesn't matter where, but it's a data center. End of day, right? People talk about the cloud and the cloud and the cloud, and the cloud is a data center. And every time you ask for something from ChatGPT or the other applications, it goes to a data center, right?
Yeah, and it's very interesting, from the technical point of view, that most of these AI chips, like NVIDIA is a big deal on this. They come up with the chips, and they got released these particular chips. Mm-hmm. But NVIDIA was also the guy that used to do Bitcoin. Like people used to use these video cards because of the processors, and it's kind of cool now that again we're back to the Bitcoin era with this AI, a little bit of that,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, high performance compute stuff.
We're seeing our clients now, like all the hyperscale guys. Some of the spaces they have, they're not big enough anymore. They like we have to upgrade capacity. If we have a 400 amp bus, let's move it to an 800 amp bus because for AI we need more. Mm-hmm. So what it's doing now is condensing the data back again. We're back in, data centers have these stages, grow, shrink, grow, shrink. I think we're in a shrinking right now. We're condensing data, but of course, because data is unstoppable, we keep adding apps, go back and expand again. Once we figure it out, then there is more apps, and then
Yeah,
more
we're adding
things that
data right now, like as we're talking.
Exactly.
we will go out and come back. So from the technical perspective, yeah, it's kind of interesting how this thing evolves. But yeah, goes in, goes out, goes in, goes out. So I think we're in now, condensing. With this new technology, it's kind of like Bitcoin. We're on the Bitcoin era a little bit. I would say we're back to that with the AI. Not quite. You cannot compare, but I say it's kind of interesting how the NVIDIA is dominating this technology with the GPUs. Which is kind of cool. I see it, and it's pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, it's fucking huge.
From the geek side,
Well, I'm glad that we got to talk about like two different paths and stories here, because, well, first you're like, hey, I'm a business major, I went into sales, and you're like, no, I saw electricity, and I'm a fucking engineer, I know math. So like from two different paths, going in from the business side, wanting to be an entrepreneur, going through that side, and then you going from drafting, like going from that side to being a principal in electrical engineering. Those are two huge paths that, like, your shit. You know what I mean? Like, you're really good at your job. You've been able to make real impacts in the industry. You've been part of programs that were fundamental to why we even have a data center industry. And I think it's important to say all these things, because what we're going to talk about next is how we got introduced and started talking about these things. And it's, some inspiration from Alejandro, but Hola Data, the thing that we've been talking about in the background this whole time, and that we all find a great amount of personal satisfaction helping other people just like us figure out the things that you didn't even know you were going to do. The path to coming to Austin, going back to Puerto Rico, and like starting this whole professional network across the country. You didn't know you were going to do that.
Never did.
You didn't know you were going to start your own data center company, when you started out as a sales guy going between the US and Mexico. And then now you're a data center owner at the stage that is competing against billions and billions of dollars of capital. So we are passionate about having people just like us who didn't know shit 20, 40 years ago take the same path, because the farmer in Puerto Rico is a fucking amazing mathematician who's an electrical engineer. From Monterrey, coming all the way to the US and being a business owner, a US-based business owner deploying capital in Mexico, there's plenty of people just like us that are all in those farms, all in those cities, that if we could talk to and we can tell them about these things, that's the next generation of leaders. So Hola Data is this concept that we came up with together, and that is Hispanics and Latinos advancing the data center industry. And so much of what we think about when we say like Hispanic Heritage Month, well, when you get technical about it, it's like, well, there's a lot of different countries who qualify the Hispanic realm, a lot of different countries that qualify the Latin realm. So we're trying to bridge all these countries together that have all got people in the US now that are on our job sites, that are drafts people, they're getting into the industry, new salespeople. They're getting into it. We want to put that in overdrive.
Yeah.
We want to start talking to the people in the small towns in South Texas, in Arizona, and other areas. We want to talk to professionals that are in this industry who are curious how to get forward. And we want to be a resource for those that are in Latin America right now and want to understand, like, how the hell do I come work in the US? Like, what's the immigration process like? What do I apply? It's like, you've all experienced it, and professionals about it. So Hola Data is something that we're developing, and we're going to do a few different things with it. Like, what is something that you think is important to accomplish in what we're trying to do?
I think for me, I went through a lot of struggles. Like I said, when I was growing up as an engineer in town, I kind of want to share my experience and help others not to go through the stuff I went through. I think that's my motivation. I think so. I've been lucky or whatever you want to put it. I have this ability to grow that other people didn't have, and I want to make sure that there is as many as me as possible, that we can propagate people like me, so we can grow. I want them as a Hispanic person in the industry, so that is, at least that's my goal. That's my intentions. I want to make sure that people will not go through the things I went through. That would be my thing.
Hell yeah. What about you, Alejandro? What are some of the things you think we should try to accomplish that make you feel great?
Well, I see a couple of buckets. The Hispanic, Latin America people already in the industry,
Yeah.
and the people that are not in the industry. How can we attract that first, second generation of U.S. citizens. They come from a Latin background to really understand how industry works and how they can enhance and work and make money and create a great future for them and for their families.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal industry. And how can we help as well the people that are in the industry right now that are struggling with language, with understanding how to communicate? And you said it perfectly. There's pockets here in the United States where people live that they don't speak English, right? I've seen
US
it myself.
citizens.
There are U.S. citizens, right? They don't speak English, right? And I think they're creating tools and creating an ecosystem of information for that market will help us enhance and get those individuals as well up and be a part of the ecosystem on an executive level, right? That they also can grow and they can share.
Yeah. You're the example.
Yeah.
Like both are the examples for this.
Guidance and mentorship, I think, is very important.
Exactly.
For us. We have to guide and mentor as many people as we can so we can make sure that they don't go through the things we went through.
Yes.
And to do a better job of explaining what Hola Data is going to be, in essence, it's a nonprofit, we'll start, that's going to have a specific mission, and that's educating, like you said, people not in the industry, people about degrees. And what I think is so neat, every job site in America right now has about 80% Hispanics on there. And like what you just said, plenty of them don't speak English. So all of these sites have safety professionals who don't speak Spanish. So they're going and they're giving these safety briefs and they're talking about this, and there's a translator saying, "Oh, he said all these things." It's the perfect opportunity to bring Hispanics into that role, into the safety realm, because they already speak Spanish. 80% of the people on site are Hispanic. So we're going to do a number of things that I think are creative. We're going to try to sponsor certifications that get people ESL courses that can take things at night so they can advance their career by speaking the language better. We'll give them a path to be a safety professional. We'll expose them to mechanical, electrical, plumbing degrees, construction management degrees, all the things that no one talked to me about when I was in college of like, hey, this is a very important thing that could grow in. I think I searched online. I'm like, hey, what's a good degree? What's going to advance the industry? Back then, oil and gas was fantastic, place to focus on. But we're going to talk about the data industry because it's all what changed a lot of our lives. And that's the reason we're doing the things we are here. So it's going to take us a while over the next few months to roll this out. There's some other people that aren't here that'll be part of this. So all that data, expect a little more about it. And we're going to keep working on that.
Yeah, I think so. That's the goal.
Well, anything else we should cover about Hola Data, the Latin American industry, or?
Well, I would like to finish. Just people that are able to see this podcast, reach out to us, and if they want to know a little bit more about how it's going to work and
want to be
what are the benefits, want to be a supporter as well.
Hispanic lead. We talk about one of the. So we're going to figure this out. We're going to go through and develop our processes and develop our mission pillars. But one of the things that you said that's perfect for what we're going to start with is we're going to do an expanded podcast series with just Hispanic leaders across our industry telling us the same thing you both told us, how you got here. Like, I don't think anyone would have guessed from a farmer, from sales to be where you're at. And we're just going to keep telling that story of Hispanic leaders across the industry as we develop this whole platform. So stay tuned for other Hispanic leaders going to come in and tell their stories just the same. I think that's one of the things I really want people to leave with, as one of the things we're going to develop with all the data.
Awesome.
And join us, to help us help others.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you know someone, you have someone, a family member, a construction worker on one of these sites, we're going to find a path to expose them to all the different things that, frankly, I don't think anyone's targeting right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's we can create a lot of resources for this to happen. And sometimes even people, if they have the ability to speak their language and not speaking our native language, it'll be easier for them to understand what's a path for improvement and also what's a path for.
Well, just imagine we do the
first
better. Spanish podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a little further than the high hellos at that point. But I think just the way you express yourself would be different. And it'd be kind of illuminating for other people to see.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for talking and sharing your stories.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.